The royal bloodline. The halls of the Ilvani Star Palace were made of glass and gold, shining with light from twin suns. Servants moved quickly, heads bowed. Nobles wore long flowing robes and carried themselves like gods. Everything here was about bloodlines. Who your parents were, what family you came from, and how pure your genes were. At the top of it all was Princess Valrine. She was tall, with violet eyes and silver hair braided like a crown. She was proud, elegant, and born into one of the oldest royal families in the galaxy. The Ilvani were powerful, gifted with psionic abilities. They believed in blood above all things. Pure blood, noble blood. Valrine had trained her whole life to represent her people. She could move objects with her mind. She could speak without words. And she believed one thing with all her heart. Humans are useful, but beneath us. So when she was told she would be escorted by a human during a peace mission, she laughed, out loud. "A human?" she asked the council. "Is this some kind of joke?" "No joke," said Elder Savith. "The humans helped negotiate the treaty. The Terran Alliance insists one of their commanders join you on the ground." Valrine frowned. "Do they think I need help from a species without history? Without pedigree?" "He is experienced," the elder said. "He has survived many battles on harsh planets. He knows the terrain. His name is Commander Jack Mason." Valrine rolled her eyes. "Very well. If he slows me down, I will leave him behind." The next day, Valrine stood near the starship docks. Her ship, the Whispering Sun, was ready for departure. She wore a long purple robe made of Ilvani silk. Her guards stood in formation. She waited for the human to arrive. When Jack Mason walked up the ramp, she almost laughed. He wore simple gray armor, scratched and dusty. No robe. No jewels. He had short brown hair and deep-set eyes that looked tired but alert. He nodded politely. "Princess Valrine," he said. "It's an honor." Valrine did not return the greeting. She looked him up and down, unimpressed. "You are smaller than I expected," she said, "and poorly dressed." Jack didn't react. He simply said, "I travel light." She turned to her guards and whispered in Ilvani, "He smells like engine oil." They all chuckled. Jack understood. But he said nothing. The mission was simple. Travel to the neutral border planet Karen 4, meet with a local governor, and secure peace talks between warring factions. The surface was harsh. Dust storms, strange, animals and ancient ruins from a lost alien race. Valrine expected a smooth trip. But trouble came quickly. While flying over the ruins, their shuttle was hit by a sudden electromagnetic pulse. Lights flickered. Systems failed. "We're going down," Jack said calmly, pulling at the controls. Valrine screamed, "Use the dampeners." "Already tried," Jack replied. The shuttle crashed into the sand, skidding for 100 meters before stopping against a stone outcrop. Alarms blared, smoke rose, metal bent. Valrine was shaken, but alive. Jack pulled her out of the seat and carried her outside. She pushed him away once they were clear. "I can walk," she said coldly. He nodded. "As you wish." They stood in the middle of the desert. Orange skies, winds howling, the wrecked shuttle behind them, no signal, no power. "We're in the middle of nowhere," Jack said, "and we might not be alone." Valrine tried to use her psionic powers, but something was wrong. The energy felt blocked, twisted. She couldn't lift even a small rock with her mind. "This planet is cursed," she hissed. "I can't feel the source." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Then we'll do things the human way." He pulled out a small scanner and checked for life forms. "Something's moving 2 clicks north," he said. "We should set up shelter here for now." Valrine folded her arms. "I do not take orders from humans." Jack didn't argue. He simply walked over to the wreckage and began collecting materials for a fire. An hour later, Valrine sat beside him, arms wrapped in her robe, shivering as the desert night got colder. The fire warmed her, but she still refused to thank him. Jack ate a protein bar, offered her one. She took it silently. "You don't talk much," she said. "I talk when it matters." he replied. She studied him. Why do you not defend your species? He looked into the fire. Because the truth defends itself, you'll see. Valrine scoffed. I doubt that. But deep down, something had already shifted. The human hadn't tried to impress her. He hadn't bowed. He hadn't argued. And yet, he had carried her from the wreck, built the fire, given her food. She was royalty. He was a nobody. And yet he acted with quiet strength. Something inside her was beginning to wonder. What if pedigree wasn't everything? The hunt in the wastes. The sun on Charon 4 was brutal. It rose quickly and turned the sand into fire. The wreckage of the shuttle still smoked behind them, but there was no use staying. Commander Jack Mason stood tall, scanning the horizon. His eyes moved slowly, carefully. He had seen survival situations before, but this one was different. They were deep in alien territory without signal, food, or backup. Princess Valrine stood beside him, shielding her eyes with a silk sleeve. This heat is not natural, she said. The stars must be misaligned. Jack didn't respond. He was already studying the terrain, marking possible shelter spots and high grounds. Valrine noticed his focus. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't even sweating. She was. As they walked across the cracked land, Jack used his boot to test the ground. There's movement underground, he said. Valrine rolled her eyes. You humans see monsters everywhere. But 5 minutes later, something moved beneath the sand. Fast, close. Jack shoved her to the side just as a massive worm-like creature burst from the dirt, its mouth wide with rows of wet fangs. Valrine screamed. She tried to use her psionics again, but nothing happened. No energy, just fear. Jack pulled a compact blade from his belt. It wasn't made of any high-tech metal, just forged steel. But he didn't hesitate. He dove at the creature, stabbing it behind the jaw while dodging its strike. The beast howled, twisting. Sand flew everywhere. Valrine watched in shock, not just at the fight, but at the way the human moved. No armor, no energy field, just instinct, precision, grit. He stabbed again, deeper this time. The creature shuddered, gave one final cry, and collapsed. Dead. Jack wiped the sweat from his brow and looked at her. Still think I see monsters everywhere? Valrine's voice was quiet. That wasn't luck. No, he said. It was survival. Later, they found a small cave built into the side of a ridge. Jack lit a fire using pieces from the wreckage. Valrine sat nearby, her pride wounded more than her body. He handed her a small water flask. She took it without a word. After a while, she broke the silence. Why did you save me back there? Jack didn't even look up. Because you're alive, and I'm not going to let anything change that. Valrine frowned. Even after I mocked you, called you bloodless, said you were beneath me? Jack shrugged. I've been called worse. I don't protect people because they're noble. I protect them because I can. Valrine stared into the flames. No one had ever said that to her. Ilvani warriors only protected what they were sworn to. Bodyguards for titles, fighters for bloodlines. No one ever protected her just because she was a person. Jack leaned against the cave wall. We won't last long if we don't find water and signal. I thought humans needed rest, she said. Jack gave her a half smile. Not the ones raised in real deserts. She tilted her head. You were raised in a desert? Jack nodded. Arizona, Earth. My father was a ranger. Taught me to hunt, track, build. Told me never to waste breath on bragging. Just prove yourself when it matters. Valrine listened. She had never heard someone speak with such simplicity. No big words, no long titles, just facts. Truth. Your father sounds wise. Jack's smile faded slightly. He died when I was 17, saving tourists during a canyon flood. I'm sorry. He nodded once. He died with honor. That's what matters. The next day they walked further into the dry lands. Jack crafted a spear from a broken shuttle rod. Valrine laughed when she first saw it. That thing won't stop a sand beast. It did. Twice. He caught 2 lizard creatures for meat and chased off a pack of hungry scavengers with nothing but fire and noise. Every time he acted, Valrine was forced to watch a man without noble blood do everything her people claimed only highborn warriors could do. He didn't read maps with glowing scrolls. He read shadows in the sand. He didn't talk to spirits. He listened to wind direction. He didn't fly above the world. He walked through it, and every time he made a decision, it was right. That evening, she finally said what had been burning in her chest. "You don't act like a soldier." Jack glanced at her. "No, you act like a king." He raised an eyebrow. "I'm just doing what needs to be done." She shook her head. "Where I come from, the nobles would still be arguing over who gets to lead while we starve." Jack didn't respond. He didn't have to. She already knew he agreed. That night they sat beside the fire again. The stars above Cairn 4 glowed like ice, sharp and silent. Valrine spoke first. "My people believe in purity, in perfect bloodlines. They say humans are too mixed, too wild." Jack poked at the fire. "Maybe that's why we survive," he said. "We don't fit one mold. We adapt." Valrine looked at him. For the first time, she didn't see a human. She saw a man made of earth and fire, a protector, and something else she didn't want to admit yet. Something frightening and new. Respect. Blood doesn't make you brave. The wind howled like a wounded animal across the stone ridges of Cairn 4. The desert stretched endlessly. The red sky above offered no comfort, only the fading light of 2 distant suns that slowly dipped beneath the dusty horizon. Valrine sat on a flat rock, her robe torn, her silver braid loose and tangled from the wind. Her arms were wrapped around her knees. She wasn't used to feeling helpless, but today had changed something in her. Commander Jack Mason stood a few feet away, sharpening the tip of a spear he had crafted from metal fragments and a straight branch. His face was serious, focused. Every movement he made had purpose. They had been walking for 2 days now, surviving, escaping wild beasts, searching for a signal, and now, she couldn't stop staring at him. She had always believed courage was something inherited, like wealth or beauty. Her people had drilled it into her mind since birth. Ilvani blood is stronger, wiser, braver. But what she had seen today broke that belief into pieces. It began in the morning. They had found an old wreck, a crashed cargo pod buried in the sand, half swallowed by time. It looked like shelter. Jack decided to investigate. Valrine followed reluctantly. Inside, it was dark, dry, and smelled of rust and dust. They found old food packs, metal parts, and what looked like power cells. None functional, and then came the sound, low, guttural, like a growl. Jack grabbed his spear. "Stay behind me." Valrine felt her heartbeat speed up. "What is it?" But before he could answer, it attacked. A beast, black, fast, and built like a 6-legged panther, leaped from the shadows. Its eyes glowed. Its claws sliced the air. Valrine screamed. She tried her psionics again. Nothing. The planet's interference was still blocking her powers. Jack didn't flinch. He stood in front of her. The beast lunged. Jack met it head-on, driving the spear into its side. But it kept fighting. It bit into his shoulder. Blood spilled. Valrine watched in horror as he pushed the creature back, slammed it into the wall, and then stabbed again, deeper this time. With a final howl, the beast collapsed. Jack stumbled, back, breathing hard. Valrine rushed to him, eyes wide. "Your shoulder—" "It's fine," he said through clenched teeth. "You're bleeding." Jack looked down. "I've had worse." Valrine tore a strip from her robe and pressed it to the wound. Her hands trembled. "You didn't have to fight it alone." He looked at her. "You couldn't use your powers." "So? I could have distracted it. Thrown a rock. Something." Jack smiled faintly. "You were scared. It's okay." She pulled. "Don't say that like I'm weak." "You're not," he said. But bravery doesn't come from titles, it comes from choice. And sometimes from fear. Valreen blinked. What do you mean? Jack sat down against the wall. You can't be brave unless you're afraid first. That sentence hit her like thunder. You can't be brave unless you're afraid first. Her whole life, she had been told fear was shameful, that it made you less, that the royal bloodline had no place for cowards. But this human, this man with no noble house, no pedigree, no psionic power, had fought a monster with only a stick and his body. And even wounded, he wasn't ashamed of fear. He embraced it. She looked at him in a new way. Not like a guard, not like a soldier, but like someone who had lived pain and kept walking. That night, as they sat near a new campfire, Valreen spoke, softly. When I was a child, she began, they locked me in a dark room as part of my strength training. They told me I could only come out when I stopped crying. Jack said nothing. I stayed in there for 2 days, she continued, alone, hungry, cold. And when I finally stopped crying, they praised me, said I had passed the first test of royal courage. She paused, but I didn't feel strong. I just felt numb. Jack looked into the fire. I'm sorry. She shook her head. I'm telling you because today was the first time I was truly afraid, and instead of hiding, I watched someone face it head on. Jack nodded. Then today was your real test. She looked up, surprised. You didn't run, he added. You stayed. That's what matters. She smiled, softly, shyly. Maybe blood doesn't make you brave, she whispered. Jack poked the fire with a stick. Nope, it just makes you born. What you do after that, that's all you. The next morning, Valreen woke early. Jack was already up, preparing supplies for the next march. Sleep well? He asked. She nodded. Yes. For the first time, in days. He handed her a ration bar and a small cup of water. Ready to move? She looked around. Not yet. She walked back into the wreckage where the beast's body still lay. She knelt beside it. Then, with her bare hands, she cut off one of its long black fangs. She tied it to a string and wore it around her neck. When she stepped outside, Jack raised an eyebrow. What's that for? She held the fang in her hand and said, a reminder that true courage doesn't roar, it bleeds and survives. Jack didn't say anything. He just smiled, and the two of them began walking again, not as strangers, but as equals. The enemy within. The sandstorms of Karen 4 had passed, leaving behind dry air and orange skies. After days of walking, bleeding, and surviving, Princess Valreen and Commander Jack Mason finally reached an old Ilvani outpost, buried beneath layers of dust and silence. The gates opened automatically, responding to Valreen's royal biosignature. They walked inside, tired but hopeful. Jack scanned the room with his usual sharp eyes. The walls were cracked, but the core systems still worked. Air, water, and communications. They were safe. For now. Valreen placed her hand on a console. This place belonged to my great-grandfather. He used it during the Ilvani Wars. I never thought I'd see it like this. Jack nodded but said nothing. He moved through the base like a soldier returning to a battlefield. Valreen could feel something different in the air. Not just survival. Not just heat. Tension. It wasn't over. They activated the comm unit and tried to reach the Ilvani fleet. Within minutes, they received a response from the Royal Star Cruiser Aldros. A familiar face appeared on the screen. Prince Lorcan, Valreen's cousin. His smile was sharp, too perfect, like a blade polished. For show. Dearest cousin, he said smoothly. We feared you were lost. What a relief to see your face. Valreen narrowed her eyes. We were attacked. Our shuttle was sabotaged. Lorcan blinked. How unfortunate. It must have been bandits. The border planets are dangerous. Jack stepped into the screen's view. Lorcan's expression changed, slightly. And this must be the human, Lorcan said. You survived together? Valreen nodded. He saved my life. More than once. Lorcan's smile returned, but colder. Impressive. He paused. We will send a retrieval ship. Be ready, it may take a few hours. In the meantime, rest. The screen went black. Jack turned to Valreen. He didn't ask who attacked us, didn't offer details, didn't even look surprised. Valreen's face grew serious. I noticed. Jack walked to the edge of the room. You trust him? Valreen didn't answer, because deep down she didn't. Hours passed. Valreen explored the outpost while Jack repaired a short-range sensor. In the old command room, she found a dusty terminal with past mission logs. She accessed the files, encrypted, but she still had clearance. As she decrypted the data, something strange appeared. A message sent from the Aldros, weeks before the mission began. It was coded, but the meaning was clear. Ensure the crash occurs in Zone 3. Isolate the princess. Use psionic interference. Blame local insurgents. Valreen stood frozen. Betrayal. From her own family. From the royal court. From Lorcan. She felt her hands tremble. All her life she believed her blood made her safe. That nobility protected nobility. That Ilvani never turned on their own. But now she knew the truth. Her family tried to get rid of her. Jack walked in moments later. He saw her pale face and the shaking screen in her hands. What happened? She turned the screen toward him. He read it slowly, carefully. Then he looked at her. His voice was quiet. I'm sorry. Valreen shook her head. I should have seen it. He's always wanted power. With me gone, he becomes the heir. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder. You're not alone. She looked at him. But I am. My own blood turned on me. He squeezed her shoulder gently. Then it's time to choose your family. Not the one you're born into, but the one who stands beside you. She stared at him, and for the first time she saw what he really was. Not just a protector, not just a human, but the only person who had never betrayed her. When the Aldros arrived, it wasn't a rescue ship. It was a hunter. Jack saw it first from the ridge. That's a war cruiser, not a medical vessel. Valreen's heart sank. A drop team landed outside the outpost. 10 armored Ilvani soldiers. Their orders were clear. Bring back Valreen alive. Kill the human. Inside, Jack loaded. His last weapon, a pulse rifle from the wrecked shuttle. Valreen held the beast fang necklace around her neck. You don't have to fight, Jack said. Valreen lifted her chin. Yes, I do. She stood beside him, not behind. The doors opened. Smoke grenades rolled in. Jack fired first. Quick, clean shots. He didn't miss. 2 soldiers down. Valreen picked up a broken metal rod. She wasn't strong. She wasn't trained for hand-to-hand combat. But she swung with fury when a soldier charged. She wasn't fighting for the throne anymore. She was fighting for herself. And for him. The battle ended quickly. 6 soldiers ran back to the cruiser, dragging their wounded. The others lay unconscious. Lorcan's voice came over the outpost speakers. You've chosen poorly, cousin. Valreen stepped to the mic. No, I've chosen freely. She ended the transmission. Later that night, after securing the outpost, Valreen stood outside under the alien sky. The stars were brighter now, or maybe her eyes were clearer. Jack stood beside her. She looked at him. I was taught to look down on your kind, that you were wild, uncivilized, impure. Jack smiled slightly. You said that many times. I was wrong, she whispered. You're more noble than anyone I've ever known. Jack didn't answer. She stepped closer. And for the first time in her life, she did something without thinking, without orders, without permission. She reached out and held his hand. Closer than blood. The stars above Karen 4 pulsed like heartbeats, glowing against the black canvas of space. From the surface, the warship Aldros had left orbit, but its shadow still lingered in Valreen's mind. It had been 3 days since the battle at the outpost. The wounds had started to heal, on their skin at least. But deeper wounds remained. Betrayal by her own cousin, the knowledge that her throne was no longer hers to trust, and the growing silent feelings she couldn't ignore anymore. She found herself watching Jack Mason when he wasn't looking, the way he moved with quiet confidence, the way he listened more than he spoke, the way he never looked at her like a title, but always like a person. It confused her, frightened her, and it also warmed something in her heart she didn't know existed. They had made camp beside a small mineral lake, discovered by Jack through signs of moisture in the cracked terrain. The water was barely drinkable, but he had taught her how to boil it with the heat plates from their ruined equipment. Valreen was not used to boiling her own water, or building her own shelter, or hunting small game for food, but now she didn't want to return to the palace and be waited on again. Not after this. "Do you ever miss your home?" she asked Jack one night, as they sat near the fire. Jack stared into the flames. "Sometimes, but not in the way you think. I don't miss the buildings. I miss the people. Your family?" He nodded slowly. "My sister, my uncle, a few friends who stuck around when times were hard." Valreen wrapped her robe tighter. "What about your parents?" Jack hesitated. "Gone, years ago. War took my father. Illness took my mother. After that, I had to grow up fast." Valreen looked down. "I've always had people around me. Servants, guards, advisors, but most of them never saw me. Just the crown." Jack looked at her gently. "I've always seen you." Her breath caught for just a second. She wasn't used to such direct words, especially not from someone who had once been assigned as little more than her escort. "Why didn't you ever try to win my approval?" she asked. "Because I didn't need it to do my job. And I didn't want your attention for the wrong reason." She nodded slowly. "Then, what reason would be right?" Jack didn't answer, not with words. He simply held her gaze. Soft, steady, real. Valreen stood, walked a step closer. The flames lit her face with golden light. "I don't know what happens after this," she whispered. "I don't know if I'll have a throne, or even a future in my world." "You'll have one," he said, "even if we have to make it from scratch." Valreen stepped even closer. Her fingers touched his hand. "No one has ever stood beside me like you have." "I'm not standing beside a crown," Jack said. "I'm standing beside you." Their lips met, softly, slowly, without force. It wasn't a kiss of conquest or victory. It was survival, a shared breath after weeks of running, hurting, and changing. Days passed. The Ilvani rescue ships arrived, not from Lorcan's command but from the capital itself, where news of his betrayal had leaked through encrypted messages Valreen sent, using Jack's knowledge of backdoor channels. She was welcomed back, not with celebration, but with caution. But she didn't care about the politics anymore. What mattered to her now was something growing inside her. She sensed it before any scan. Ilvani women could feel the spark of new life early, before machines, before tests. At first, she thought she was just tired, but the feeling grew, a warmth in her core, a shift in her energy. She didn't tell anyone, not even Jack, until the medical results confirmed it. The doctors looked at her with confusion. "Princess," they said, "there is something unexpected." Valreen stared at the screen. It showed a heartbeat, strong but different. The genetics weren't fully Ilvani, nor fully human. The child was something new. The doctors said nothing for a while. Then they gave her a choice. Hide it, remove it, or leave her title behind. Valreen stood up slowly. "I will not hide what is mine," she said, "and I will not deny the one who gave it to me." She found Jack in the garden of the Ilvani Healing Temple, sitting on a stone bench. When he saw her, he stood. "I need to tell you something," she said. He looked at her, calm, curious. She reached for his hand, placed it on her stomach. "I'm carrying your child." Jack didn't speak, not out of fear, but from awe. "You're sure?" She nodded. I feel it. And the scans confirmed it. He stared at her, searching for doubt, for fear, for regret. He found none. She smiled. Do you remember what I called you when we first met? He nodded. A lowborn, without pedigree. Valrine took his hand and placed it over her heart. Now I carry a life with you inside me, and already that life is stronger than anything my people expected. Jack's voice was soft. What will they say? She looked to the stars. They'll say many things, but one day they will bow to the child you gave me, not because of blood, but because of spirit. Jack kissed her forehead, and in that quiet garden, with no guards, no robes, no crowns, just two people, broken and rebuilt, a future was born, the Forbidden Union. The golden towers of the Ilvani capital shined beneath the twin moons, beautiful and cold, like the people who ruled beneath them. Inside the grand palace, where walls whispered of ancient pride and bloodlines too pure to touch, Princess Valrine stood before the High Council with her chin raised, shoulders squared, and defiance burning in her violet eyes. She no longer wore her crown. She had given it back, but she still carried something more powerful. Truth. I am with child, she said calmly, and the father is a Terran commander named Jack Mason. The room, once filled with murmurs and whispers, fell into stunned silence. Then the outrage began. You are Ilvani royalty. This union is forbidden. You insult centuries of noble tradition. The child must not ascend. But Valrine raised her hand, and the room obeyed. Because though she had returned without a title, she carried something no noble ever had. Courage earned, not inherited. You taught me to protect our blood, she said. But what have our pure lines brought us? Betrayal, arrogance, and fear. She looked at them one by one. My cousin tried to kill me for a throne. My people laughed at a man who saved my life. And now, you want to erase a child that hasn't even taken its first breath because you're afraid. One elder hissed. You risk civil unrest for this mistake? Valrine stepped forward. This child is not a mistake. He is a bridge between what we are and what we could be. Outside the palace walls, the streets buzzed with rumor. News of Valrine's pregnancy spread quickly, faster than any royal decree. Some called it heresy, others called it hope. Across planets where Ilvani and humans lived side by side, but never truly together, something began to shift. Common people, miners, engineers, healers, translators began to speak openly. If royalty can love a human, they said, then maybe nobility isn't just about blood. For the first time in Ilvani history, ordinary people began writing to the Royal Council, thousands of messages from every corner of the empire. Let the child live. Let this union stand. We are more than our blood. But the council would not move easily, so Valrine turned to the only person who had never let her down. She returned to Earth. She found Jack Mason training, new recruits at a Terran base in the mountains, his hair longer, his armor scratched, his voice calm as always. When he saw her, his eyes softened. He walked toward her slowly, unsure. Then she took his hand and said 3 words. Stand beside me. He didn't ask for a speech. He didn't demand to know why. He simply said, always. Together they returned to the capital, hand in hand. The first time in history a human and an Ilvani royal entered the palace throne hall together, not as enemies, not as diplomats, but as equals. Behind them walked soldiers, farmers, children, artists, human and Ilvani alike, not with weapons but with letters, poems, photos, stories. They filled the hall, not with war, but with witnesses. Valrine stood before the throne one final time, and she made no speech. She simply placed her hand on her stomach and said, if this child threatens your throne, then your throne was never strong to begin with. In the end, the council did not accept them, but they could no longer stop them. The people had spoken. The nobles could not silence the stars. And so Valrine and Jack left the palace, not as royals but as founders. They returned to Cairn IV, to the desert that broke and rebuilt them. There, with help from both human and Ilvani settlers, they began building something new. A city, not ruled by blood, but guided by shared purpose. They called it Neravai, a word in ancient Ilvani that meant beginning. Here, humans and Ilvani trained side by side. They ate together, built homes together, raised children together, and when asked why they followed a woman once cast out, people said the same thing. Because she chose love over lineage, and dignity over title. Then came the day. The child was born beneath the Cairn suns. He had his father's eyes, and his mother's psionic spark. The healers gasped. He moved objects with his mind by the third day. He began speaking in both languages by one. Year by 5, he stood in front of Ilvani elders and said, "You feared my blood, but I am not made from fear, I am made from truth." And they wept, because they saw something they could not explain, something they could not deny. Evolution. Valrine sat by the window of their stone house, watching Jack play with their son in the sand. She smiled. "You once said your people adapt," she whispered to herself, and now she saw it clearly. Adaptation was not weakness. It was power. It was love. It was how two hearts from opposite worlds created something the galaxy had never seen before. Offspring of the future. The desert wind of Cairn IV swept gently through the streets of Neravai, the new city built by those who no longer believed in bloodlines, but in unity. Stone homes stood beside solar towers. Ilvani crystal lamps flickered alongside human torchlight. Markets buzzed with both languages, and children, some Ilvani, some human, and some of both, ran through the alleys barefoot, laughing without fear. At the center of it all stood the Temple of Bridges, a school, a council hall, a home of knowledge. Its name came from a child, the one who was never meant to exist. His name was Oren Mason, born of a human and an Ilvani, born without a place. And yet now, the entire galaxy watched him, because he had become something they couldn't ignore. By the time Oren was 10, he could move entire walls with his mind, but he rarely did. Instead, he used his psionics to heal, to lift, to help. He taught younger children, no matter their species, to work together. He listened more than he spoke, like his father. And when he did speak, people listened, even the Ilvani elders, even Earth generals, even those who once called him a mistake. They now called him something else, a sign. Oren didn't care for the praise. He spent most of his time with plants, animals, and books. But when asked what he wanted to become, he didn't say king, emperor, or commander. He said, "I want to be the kind of person who never needs a title to lead, just like his father, just like his mother, once a proud princess, now a humble builder of cities." One day, an envoy from the Ilvani High Council arrived in Neravai. They came not with soldiers, but with scrolls, offers of peace, of alliance, of recognition. The lead elder, his robe heavy with tradition, asked to speak with Oren. "I once voted against your mother," he confessed. "I believed her child would weaken our line." Oren, now 13, looked the elder in the eyes. "But you were wrong," he said. The elder nodded. "Yes, we feared change. You are that change. And now we see. You are not the end. You are the beginning." The council offered him a place among the Ilvani nobility. Oren refused. He placed a small stone on the elder's palm instead. "What is this?" the elder asked. "A seed," Oren said. "We plant those here before we build anything. That way, the roots remind us to grow upward." The elder returned to the capital and told the story to his people. And slowly, their hearts changed. Elsewhere in the galaxy, human commanders who once saw the Ilvani as arrogant and cold began working with their counterparts in Neravai's Unity Council. Soldiers trained together. Scientists shared notes. Artists began collaborating on stories that combined both worlds, Earth's raw survival and Ilvani's elegance of thought. What had started with one insult, "You have no pedigree," ended with a generation raised without prejudice. Oren became the symbol not of one culture, but of many. And still, he remained grounded, because Jack Mason, though older now, still woke every morning before sunrise, walked into the kitchen, and taught his son the same lessons his own father taught him in Earth's deserts. Character is what you do when no one's watching. Respect is not owed, it's earned. Speak less. Mean more. And Valreen? She continued her work as a teacher, healer, and advisor. She no longer wore silk robes or spoke from high towers. But when she entered a room, even seasoned generals stood in silence. She had proven that real royalty comes from what you risk for others, and she had risked everything. On the 15th anniversary of Nerevai's founding, a celebration was held under the stars. Humans, Ilvani, and hybrids all gathered in the central square. Food was shared. Music was played on strange instruments combining both species' designs. Laughter filled the air. Oren stepped onto a small platform. No speech had been prepared. No throne waited behind him. Just his parents. He looked out at the crowd and said, "My mother was called a traitor. My father, a commoner. But together, they created a place where no one is made to feel less. Not because of blood, not because of past, but because here, we are all enough." He paused, then looked to the stars. "We were told that crossing bloodlines was dangerous, that the unknown was to be feared. But you know what I fear? I fear a world where we stop growing, where we stop learning, where we stop loving beyond borders." The crowd was quiet. Then, someone clapped. Then another. Then the square roared. Jack watched from the side, arms folded, a rare smile on his face. Valreen reached for his hand. "You once said you had no place among the stars," she whispered. Jack looked at her. "Looks like our son made one for us." And far away in the archives of both Ilvani and Terran history, this story was recorded. Not just as a tale of rebellion or survival, but as the moment the galaxy realized, bloodlines may build empires, but it is love that builds the future.